we were like, listen, if you're not going to support us in building our business, this is our dream. You are not going to be able to see your grandkids. My name's Stefan.
I'm Jenna.
We were in the business for 13 years.
I want to ask you, first of all, what year did this start that you joined the business?
2010.
2010, okay. And you were in it till 2023.
Yep.
Damn, so this has just been the past year is like the first year that you guys have been on the other side of this.
Yeah, officially a year in June.
Wow.
Really like coming to the realization of like all the cult stuff, and that was in December of last year. So not even a year yet of having the understanding of things.
Wow, that's amazing because I became aware of you guys through Instagram, like seeing your posts. You're really quite consistent in posting about your experience and just like MLM tactics in general. So that's amazing that you've only been out for such a short time. I find that like people who are fresh out usually take some time, if not like months, a year more, to like just sort of process and decompress from their experience. But it seems like you guys went right into like it was a big switch, right?
Yeah. Well, there's even people like in our DMs that are like, I've been out for like 4 years and I felt so much shame that I haven't like talked to anybody about this situation at all. So
Right.
I think it takes a long time sometimes for people to really like wrap their minds around it. We just like, I think the switch was easy for us maybe because we were in for such a long time. I don't know.
Yeah. And we were so lied to. We believed it all.
Yeah.
The whole time. Even after we initially left, we kind of maybe felt guilty, like, oh, we just left a great opportunity. We're never going to have success in our life now.
We did the one thing they told us that we couldn't do if we wanted to be successful, which was quit.
Yeah. Well, winners never quit and quitters never win.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess we should start at the beginning. You guys are married, obviously, right? What was happening in your lives at the time in 2010 when you joined? Did you both join together or did one of you join first? Like, take me back to what the life situation looked like in 2010.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we were much younger. We were university students. We were 21 or 22. And I was finishing up nursing. Stefan was in psychology. One of my coworkers was talking about how she was going to be retiring soon. And she was also in her 20s. And, we were naive, young, idealistic,
Country kids.
small town people that just moved to the city. And I guess you would say like prime MLM candidates.
Transitioning in life. She was graduating.
Yeah.
I was trying to figure out where I was going to go.
Yeah. So honestly, it just sounded interesting. And I was like, well, I don't know if I want to work forever. Sure. Like, let me know what you're doing. And I kind of pursued her, actually. It wasn't like I was prospected that much. And then we ended up meeting them and going through this interview process.
She had a coffee first with the girl, and then she came back with like a sheet of paper with just like a circle and a line and a circle and a line. And like there was nothing even written in it. And I was like, what did you talk about? And she's like, I don't know. We talked about like life and goals and where I want to be. And I was like, okay, I guess I'll meet these random people. So we did. And yeah, I don't know. They seemed like they were people that were going somewhere. They were driven. They were dressed well. They spoke well. She is extremely charismatic. So they just...
Yeah, I don't know if it was our naivety or if they were just really good manipulators, but they did seem trustworthy.
Mm-hmm.
They seemed, they professed being like Christian people, good values.
And the crazy thing is too that they like, I don't know how much maybe they were just brainwashed at that point in time themselves, right? And we saw them go. The hard thing for us, like people are probably like, well, why did you stay for 13 years if you didn't create some incredible results? We watched them. We sat next to them when they were making like a couple $1,000s in the business to making millions of dollars in the business. Right. So like they were a success story. They actually went gemstone or whatever you want to call that big pin, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So we watched it all happen. So we were like, if they can do it, we can do it. They're no better than us.
And I'm
Which is
sure
what
they
they
told
always.
you. Sorry,
Yeah.
go
Oh,
ahead.
100 times. Yeah.
The big talking point on
Yeah.
stages.
Interesting. So this is always something I'm fascinated by. It's like, obviously there's the claims, the earnings claims that are rampant in every MLM. And I find it's sort of this like chicken and the egg paradox where someone who's completely broke will go up on stage or in front of a meeting and say, I'm making, this business allowed me to make $10,000 a month. And in reality, they might be making nothing. And then they repeat this enough to the point that they get people to give them their money, and now they actually are making $10,000 a month. And then once they're making $10,000 a month, they say, I'm making $100,000 a month. And it's sort of this like, it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy, but it's all based on like just beefing up the lie to the next level. And I
Yeah.
think in almost every case, the people who are claiming that they're making a lot are actually, even if they are making objectively a lot, they're still exaggerating it however much. So were you ever able to like verify that your uplines were actually making this kind of money? And if so, was there any way that you were able to verify that their expenses didn't outweigh their earnings?
Well, I mean, over 13 years, we got to know them pretty good. And I mean, we would have thought that we were best friends with them. Like, we went to church with them. We did homeschool with them. We, like, our kids were best friends with their kids. So we got to see them a lot in their life. And we saw them go from, like, a really dumpy apartment downtown to a really nice acreage outside of the city to, like, this unbelievably huge mansion in another part of the city here. So we saw their lifestyle change a lot, and we also knew how cheap he was in how he operated.
Hmm.
So to me, they wouldn't have increased their lifestyle like that if they weren't actually making a decent amount. But the money that they made did not come from the business opportunity that we were aware of. The money that they made came from the business within the business that you only find out about when you get to those leadership levels. So it was the tools scam.
Yes, of
Yeah.
course.
Yeah. So I honestly, I don't think a lot of them were lying from stage about how much they were making. Were things exaggerated and were they not upfront about all the ways they were being paid? Yes. But
Yeah.
I think they weren't too bad in lying about
Yeah.
income
I
claims.
think it's a little different than some other MLMs where it's like they're just blowing smoke up your
Yeah.
ass all the time. But yeah.
What does the tools business look like in modern times? Because I've seen the Sean Munger documentary about the Amway tool scam, where it's sort of in yesteryear, where he's talking about the tapes and the pamphlets and the events. I'm sure events is still a part of it, but what does it look like in modern times? Obviously, it's not cassette tapes. So what is it?
Right.
Mhm. It's
Well, when we started, it was CDs.
It was CDs when we started
Really?
in 2010.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And now it's like a digital app. So they have two different apps that you have to pay for monthly membership. There's a voicemail, and then there's the access to the audios, which is like the old school tapes,
Yeah.
but on an app.
Yeah. So there's that. And then every month there are events that you attend that they make great money off of each one. We actually did a video on our Instagram where we went to a hotel and we asked them how much it costs to rent a room for the amount of people that we were there with a couple months before that. And we figured out like they probably made, 10 grand per pop for doing this 3-hour talk in these places. And
Where they stood and said, "We're not paid to be here."
yeah.
That was always
Right.
what they
I mean,
said.
that's simple math, right? You guys are, if there's 100 people paying $10, that's $1,000. And if the room costs $500, where did, there's 500 left over that went somewhere. So,
Yeah. Well, and it's sad because when we were in, we were so brainwashed or just blinders on. We didn't even think. The leaders at the event would carry around a plastic container of money.
Like a tackle box of
Yeah.
money.
So all the people that came, the business owners came to the function, they paid their $10, then it became 15, now it's 20. I heard sometimes now it's 22. And then the leaders would take this tackle box of money and bring it into the speaker's car at the end of the meeting. right? But we not one time we're like,
Hmm.
I wonder who's making.
Well, they just finished telling us that they don't get paid to speak
And
there.
we
So we're like,
trusted
they're probably
them.
like bringing that back to the headquarters so that they can pay the hotel and like it's probably just to even cover like flights and hotel for people to fly in and speak. Like they probably use it in other areas that they're not profiting
Right.
from. But no, it was we came to found out that they were
Yeah.
taking that home with them. And
So did this start in 2010 with you guys both like right away doing it full time, or was there a transition from your previous jobs into the business?
we never did it full time. We were always doing it on
I mean,
top
were we
of.
doing it full time on
Well,
top of our
yeah,
regular jobs? Like it's always on your mind and you're always prospecting.
Yeah.
But we always had jobs
Okay.
while we were building it because we never made
enough money to be able to sustain.
I see.
Yeah.
You know that the very first thing any defenders or apologists of the business are going to say as soon as they see you guys say that you were never in it full time, they'll say, well, that's why you had a bad experience. That's why you didn't succeed. Because if you want to go all the way to the top in this business, you have to give it your all. You have to go all in. So what do you think about that?
I would say we did give it our all. I mean, there was a handful of years for sure that we were out prospecting all the time. And we built, like statistically, we built a top 5% business within the company. So based off of like the amount of how wide our business was, and we had multiple conversations too with them about it, and they confirmed like we made top 5% of what people make within the company, because a lot of people, obviously, we know the statistics now for MLMs. A lot of people make no money, and a lot of people go backwards very much. But
Right.
we saw some success. We were at leadership events. We were able to go to priority entrance at the functions and stuff like that. So we did create a reasonable amount of success. But I actually, now looking back on it, I think it was a real blessing that we weren't put in a position to really, go back on our integrity.
Yeah, because we never hit the point where you find out about the extra pay plan from the memberships. So we didn't know about it the whole time. But if we would have been put in that position, I don't know. You've worked hard to build a certain level of income and lifestyle, then you kind of have to just look the other way and take the check, which I think is what a lot of people do.
Or you risk blowing up what you've worked 6 nights a week for the last
5 years or so.
5 years, right? Yeah.
I find the 5% thing interesting because we know that 99% of people annually in MLM lose money. So if you're in the top 5%, that could actually still mean you're losing money, right?
Oh yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. Because if you're in the...
We just did our profit loss.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. We figured out we lost anywhere, it's between 70,000 and 100,000 over those 13 years, which wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be.
Honestly, not bad.
Yeah.
For 13 years.
So we did make money, right?
Yeah.
And we thought the whole way we were making, $1,000, $1,500 every month through building the business. So we thought we were doing better than most people. So we're like, oh, well, like, this is still so good. And we would say things like, the culture is so amazing that even if we didn't make $1, we'd still want to be around these people. We'd still want to be a part.
We were really bought into the people and the association, which is obviously part of the way that cults keep you in, right? But
yeah. I always find it so chilling when I hear people talk about their former uplines, and perhaps you guys feel this way sometimes too, or you look at it different in retrospect, because it's always the same. Like, they were so nice, they seem to have similar values, and it's almost like a through line. Every successfully bad person is a great guy or a great girl, like, who's the serial killer who like women loved? Was it Ted Bundy? Who he was like, oh, I never expected it. He was such a nice guy. It's like, of course he was a nice guy. Like, the best scammers are nice guys. The best bullies are very nice people. I just find it so sinister,
It is. It really is. It's creepy. It's creepy looking back now.
Yeah, and I assume we don't have that kind of charisma, or we weren't willing to like manipulate to people, or we knew if it wasn't right for people that we would just let them go, because that's what you should do. If people change their mind about something, if, you know, something's no longer the right fit for them, you let them go. But maybe we didn't do a good job of keeping people around when we should have.
Yeah.
I see.
Right?
So during this 13 years, did you have this experience that I hear a lot of people have who used to be in MLM, where their own personal relationships with families, friendships, etc., had been negatively impacted by the recruiting efforts of the people? Did you have these experiences where like family and friends, you know, you were trying to prospect them and they were not open to it, and how did that affect?
Yeah. Definitely. I We had one sit down with my sister. With my sister, we had one sit down, and that kind of caused a bit of an issue for a little while between us, because she was like, "I'm not interested at all." Like,
The thing is that people just say they're not interested. They don't
yeah,
say, well, I noticed these people don't seem trustworthy. And then as soon as we leave, your mom says, what? Oh, I never trusted
yeah.
a female who
I
was
kn-
our upline.
I knew they were
And then
a
we're like,
narcissist.
why didn't anyone, like, don't just say you're not interested? Then it makes us just as brainwashed IBOs think like, oh, well, you're just not interested because you don't want to have a great life for your family. Instead, say, I'm not interested because these are some things, red flags I've seen with these people. Or, you know, maybe this is a bunch of other people that have tried this company and these were their experiences, right? People
Yeah.
didn't really bring a lot of that to us.
Yeah, we said to you before, like, nobody really came back for us. Nobody let us know, or was really truthful with us. And like, granted, we're pretty like confident people, and we're gonna do what we're gonna do,
Yeah, we
kind of
probably weren't
regardless of
super
what other people would
approachable,
say to us.
right?
We weren't super approachable about it. But still, like, understanding what I understand now, I'd never hold back on truthfully communicating the red flags that I am seeing and noticing to
Yeah,
people.
totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I wouldn't say it caused like huge friendship issues, but just slowly fading away,
Yeah.
right? Like, of course, we tried to prospect all of our friends, and none of them were
Yeah.
interested. So, you know, we might just not spend as much time with them. I don't think we ever said to our friends, we're not hanging out with you, but then, you know, you slowly fade away. And then because we were so interested in building our business and prospecting, we didn't prioritize friendships because we
Yeah.
were told, like, you have to focus on building your business. So then we just didn't make a lot of time and space for that.
Yeah. We did
Yeah.
have one situation. I think we'd been getting like a little bit of negative from Jenna's parents, and we had to like sit down and have this conversation with them where we were like, listen, if you're not going to support us in building our business, this is our dream. You are not going to be able to see your grandkids. Like, we're not going to be around you. So, and ironically, like, her family is like the best people on the planet. Like, we have the best relationship with them, and we're making up for lost time and going on trips with them now and doing everything we can to spend more time with them. But yeah, we were all in, so we did all of the things that they said. There was one talk from stage 1 year, where a big
Gemstone.
big gemstone guy he did a snip talk, and he talked about, somebody says this to you, snip, and like, just like so over the top dramatic. And yeah, so we were being good little IBOs.
Yeah, it's really interesting to hear these accounts, because I imagine your friends probably, like Jenna, you said like nobody said why they weren't interested. I imagine from their point of view, they probably saw like how in you guys were. And I mean, you guys probably, even if they had said, here's the reason why, you were probably consciously or subconsciously prepared to argue that anyways. So maybe they thought there was no point. I mean, this is like the experience I had with my best friend from high school, who very similar to your guys' origin with the business. We were in university, or I was in university first year. He wasn't going to school at the time. He was pursuing MLM. And I told him after going to a meeting that I wasn't interested. And I did tell him why. I said, I Googled the company. And there's countless articles and reviews that say it's a pyramid scheme. I didn't even know what a pyramid scheme was at the time. And I knew it wasn't good. I knew it wasn't legit. And yeah, he was primed to respond. You're just like everyone else. You don't believe in me. They told me you would say that. So perhaps you're
You're prepared your first meeting, right? The first interactions that you have with them, the conditioning and the creating of this like perfect closed
I
environment
think we
that
could
you
call
operate
it
in.
grooming.
Yeah, absolutely. It's grooming. Yeah. You're groomed from the second you start interacting with them. And even if you're just being prospected and you start asking some questions, that's where the narrative starts to get set up and starts to get formed. And they're very intentional about how you come to understand the business and how you understand other people's perceptions of the business. And what they're talking about actually has nothing to do with what you're doing because your experience has been totally different. We one time brought a video, I think it was like the whatever
60 minutes video.
60 minutes video from YouTube. We brought that to our upline at one point, and he was like, well, has that been your experience? And I said, no, like you guys are so nice and like we've built such a great friendship with you and you guys are encouraging us and seeing potential in us and all of these great amazing things. And he's like, so it hasn't been your experience? And we were like, okay, I guess we'll just totally disregard everybody else's experience and
yeah.
go off of our understanding.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's quite interesting that, I mean, of course they never answer the criticism or the questions directly, and they'll just get
No.
you to second guess everything else. I mean, I'm surprised he didn't use the bad apples argument and say, "Oh, well, if somebody spits in a McDonald's hamburger, does that mean every McDonald's is bad? This video is just blah 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 blah." You know.
We did hear that in other
Okay,
forms for
yeah.
sure.
But yeah, I mean, there's people like I remember when the Harvey Weinstein allegations came out, there was like a couple of celebrities who were like, "He's always been a great guy to me." And it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, you're missing the point a little bit. Just a little.
Yeah.
I'm sure
Yeah.
there was people that Harvey Weinstein was like a nice guy to and seemed very generous and, you know,
Hopefully he didn't abuse every single person he interacted with.
of course. I mean,
But
that would be part of him being nice to most people would probably be a key element of him being able to maintain his abuse of some
Yeah.
people for so long.
Totally.
exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
really interesting. Okay, so I mean, I know there's so much in 13 years to go through that we'll never be able to. I mean, we could talk about it for hours, but I want to sort of like move up the timeline a little bit. So prior to you guys leaving the business, was it this experience of certain things you saw building up that sort of like sort of raised the red flag, and eventually it was just this accumulation of red flags where you're like, okay, I gotta rip the band-aid off and be out?
Yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, COVID hit, and then that kind of made it like slightly impossible to go out and prospect. So there was a lot of push to meet people online. I'd say up until COVID, we were pretty gung ho. 2019 and 2020, things changed, and so it was kind of like you couldn't really build your business as you had.
Yeah, we didn't do any social media, nothing digital before 2020. It was all in person. It was like you have to build that connection with people and have them buy into you as a person. So that has to be like a face-to-face interaction.
Yeah,
And then they switched tunes in 2020 because,
yeah,
well, they didn't want to stop growing.
of course. Yeah, I don't know. Looking back, like I think that they disconnect you from your intuition so much when you're in an organization like that with all of the well, really brainwashing programming that they give you.
Gaslighting.
And gaslighting in the relationships. I would say a lot of the relationships between the leaders and their downline, there is a lot of gaslighting. There is a lot of narcissistic type behaviors that maybe looking back, we're like, oh, that's what was happening, right? But
Mhm.
you kind of are always made to feel like you're the problem, whether it's you're not trying hard enough, so that's why you're not at the level you want to be at.
Well, especially too if your upline has so far surpassed so many people, right? Like
Yeah.
we were directly sponsored by somebody that had gone to this gemstone level. So like we were like, oh my gosh, like it has to be us. It couldn't possibly be them. They know what they're doing. They've created the life that we want. We just have to trust the process. They would always say things like, stop using your own brain
Yeah.
for 2 to 5 years and you'll be so wealthy, then you can start using your own brain again. But you need to use my thoughts. You need to use my way of thinking about things. Your brain has gotten you to exactly where you are in life, which there's a little bit of truth in that, right? And that's the hard part about all of their lies, is that there's just enough truth in all of the lies that you're like, okay, yeah, well, that does make sense. I can't really argue that like my thinking has gotten me to where I am in my life, but it's so interesting that you just like you throw out all your intuition and your own critical thinking and you say, okay, I'm going to trust you 100%. I'm going to do whatever you say because I want your results.
Yes.
Yeah, I think we started realizing around 2020, 2021 that the people that we thought were our friends, it wasn't real friendship. We realized that we had these upline that is a certain type of relationship that's not reciprocal. They can't be open and honest with you about anything in their life. So we realized that these aren't real relationships and that we needed real relationships in our life.
Has anyone told you the Cardinal Rules?
I'm not sure.
Organization? No. So there's 5 rules that you always follow, and some of them are good. Don't mess with anyone's spouse. Don't mess with anyone's money. Always check upline before doing something for the first time. So like if you think that you have some brilliant new idea on how to build the business, chances are somebody else has tried it before. So always run it by your upline before you're going to do it.
Or a major purchase or a trip or buying a dog or getting pregnant, anything.
Yeah. They would sometimes say, this pin equals baby. Literally, they would tell people when they should be having children based off of their rank within the organization. So there was that. Those 3.
Never pass anything negative.
Never pass anything negative downline. So negativity goes upline to your coach, never downline. And no cross-lining. Do you know what cross-lining is?
Yeah, recruiting from somebody else's downline or...
Well, in this organization, it's even like building relationships with people that are not either upline or downline.
So you can't be friends with anyone that's cross-line.
Wow. Yeah. Well, of course, because
you might might ask them like business questions and they're not going to know your situation fully, so they might give you bad advice.
Affect their personal life negatively.
Yeah.
Or I actually
think the
think
no pass negative downline thing is really the part that doesn't allow for an actual friendship, because like what friend do you have that comes to you and is only allowed to be positive to you?
Right.
They like you never get any negative.
Or the only relationships you have are with people who are either your subordinate or your superior.
Yeah,
correct.
It's weird, right?
I also think the crossline thing is not just so that you don't ask questions about the business. It's probably primarily so that you don't start talking and realize that you're both losing money. I think that's probably the actual focus.
Oh yeah. So the reasons that they tell you those 5 rules are there is one thing.
Yeah.
The reason those rules are actually there is another thing. It's definitely to protect the ecosystem that they build to make sure that there's not the free exchange of ideas and discussion, right? Yeah.
To what you were saying too about like the little crumbs of truth that they lead to walk you off the plank, essentially, it is interesting because things like don't use your brain, use my brain, they do sound reasonable, of course, but if you trace it back, that means that this person who's telling you that, they also used someone else's brain to get to their point, and that person before them used someone else's brain. And I think that's why you have this like cloning essentially of the personality. Like they've essentially franchised the cult leader personality. This is why everyone who's serious in every MLM talks the same, uses the same little metaphors and analogies, and it's quite literally a hive mind. I mean, that's like what a cult is. Everyone looks different on the outside, but their mind is the same on the inside. It's like the illusion of diversity, but really it's like the crowd of everyone going, one of us, you know?
Totally.
Yeah,
There was a recent TikTok video where this woman, I think her name is Amber something, she recorded an interaction where this guy was pretending to
She's
take
an
her on a
actress,
date.
yeah.
I saw that.
Yeah, and
Crazy
it turned
shit.
into yeah, and everything this guy said, I was like 100% that guy is in the same organization
Yep.
as we were because he says all of the same things we would have said.
It's really
Yeah.
spooky. It's really fucking spooky.
Yeah.
Really, really.
Imagine the like Twilight Zone you're in when it used to be you saying those words and then you hear it and you see it from somebody else's
So
perspective
cringe.
and you're like, "Oh my gosh, I did that
Cringe.
all the time."
Did you use the I love those shoes?
Oh yeah.
Oh,
You
yeah, sure.
compliment anything to start a conversation. It was always making interruptions. That's what we called it. You always had to make interruptions with people to get the conversation started and yeah.
I mean, these 5 things basically cover everything you do in your life. It's like
Yep.
it's like a complete control mechanism for every facet of someone's life. You can't get a dog until you check Upline. You can't have a baby until you check Upline. I mean, if this isn't like cookie cutter cult 101, I don't know what is, you know?
When we bought our house for the first time in 2022, I think
Yeah.
we bought a house for the first time and we're 36. So like we definitely missed the boat. I don't know if you know how much houses have gone up in Canada in the past 10 years.
I'll never
but
own a home.
we could have some serious equity in a house if we would have been smarter about it, but we just followed the advice of them. And so we checked in 2022, we checked with them. We had a conversation and my coach walked me through scenarios where I was declaring bankruptcy because I bought a $400,000 house. Like the scenarios and the fear that they try and plant in you and the advice that they give you, it's not good advice. They're not life coaches. They're not financial coaches. They're not therapists. They're not any of the things that they like they are every single day to hundreds of people. So it's no wonder that hundreds of people, thousands of people come out of the organization in situations where they're like, what the hell happened to me? I am so messed up emotionally. I'm so messed up relationally. I'm so messed up financially. I like every part of my life is upside down because I went to this person that I thought had all of these areas on track that actually had none of these areas on track because I didn't know the full picture.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Seeing the full picture is pretty eye-opening now.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, that's another amazing thing is you can just call yourself a coach. I mean, they do the same thing with the products in some MLMs, not necessarily in the one you were in, but they'll use words like natural, toxin, words that don't actually mean chemical, words that don't actually mean anything in any sort of like certifiable, measurable way. Like I said before in a video, like if you say your product is vegan, you actually have to substantiate that. You can't just slap the vegan logo on the packaging and say it's vegan. But you can call yourself a coach. What does it mean? Did you have to go to school? Did you have to get a degree to become a coach? No, you just can be a coach one day. You can just wake up and say you're a coach.
Yeah.
So it all sort of works together hand in hand. When it comes to the house, if you spend money on a house, if you put a down payment and you're making mortgage payments on a house, there's less money to spend on tools and the business.
Yeah.
So that's probably the real reason behind the phobia induction of, well, imagine if you go bankrupt this way and that way, you know?
Totally.
Yeah.
100%. They want you to have more cash flow to go to extra functions that they make money off of, or maybe stockpile a ton of products that you're allegedly selling to customers, but just buying for yourself. Like,
and which, don't get me wrong, like there were benefits to us making those choices as well. However, long term, we maybe benefited short term, right? Like I didn't have to push a lawnmower until I was 36 years old or 34 years old or whatever it was, right? Like I didn't take care of a yard. I didn't have to maintain a furnace. I didn't have to do any of those things. Now I'm 36 years old and have no idea what the hell I'm doing having a house, and it's like I'm 21 years old and I'm trying to figure all that stuff out, so I'm extremely stunted, but the benefit was I got way more time to spend, I guess, building my business, but I was going to say spending time with my kids, but I was also giving up way more of my time doing that. So
yeah Yeah. Who cares about spending time with your kids when you could be telling strangers in Walmart how much you love their shoes, right?
Oh, exactly. Exactly. And they would say things like, your kids aren't going to care that they had babysitters every night when they were young. They're going to be so jacked that you're a gemstone when you're filthy rich, living in this house, driving this car. They're going to be so grateful that you built this business. And that's just like categorically false. Like
Yeah.
your kids' self-esteem is like primarily established before they're 4 years old. So if you
Yeah.
don't think it's important for you to be there and so into them and actually show them that like the relationships that you have in your life are way more important than pursuing finances, you're not setting them up for success. And
Yeah.
I there's a lot of gemstone children who would probably corroborate that story.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I've heard from many people who grew up with their parents in one MLM or another, and it's to say that it's bad is an understatement. But I think I mean, it's been categorically proven that kids care more about quality time with their parents than money and the size of their home and whatever else. So yeah, that's probably the weakest of all the lies that your uplines could have said.
Yeah.
Going on from this, I wanted to ask you, you said that COVID kind of stunted the recruiting opportunities because obviously it's not as easy to go out and prospect, but you guys didn't leave till
Yeah.
2023, which is post COVID. So what was it like post COVID? I'm guessing things got up and running again. What was it that like post COVID you're like post COVID to the time you got out, you just became disillusioned with it and you're like, okay, we're out.
Well, there was lots of time in those 13 years where we're like, I don't know if we will ever actually accomplish what we want to accomplish, but as long as we don't quit, there's still a chance. There's
Right.
always the chance that like that next person you meet is going to be some incredible prospect that's going to totally change the face of your business,
Yeah.
and you're going to have these things that you've been dreaming about for 13 years, right? And we had built so much of our life around it. Like they were our friends, they were our church, they were our everything. Like when you invest so much of who you are and so much of your identity into something, the thought of leaving it means like you're leaving your whole identity, you're leaving your whole life, you're
Yeah.
giving up everything that you are to start fresh where there's all these question marks. And like the devil that you know is way more comfortable to stay with than the devil that you don't know, right?
Yeah. Well, and I think it reached a point in 2023 before we left at the start of the year that like I realized that he just like would say he wanted to build the business, but then he wouldn't
I
do
wanted
anything.
to want to build it, but I didn't want to do it. Like I didn't want to do the
Yes.
things anymore. I always felt the ick factor
Yeah.
in doing it, and that held me back from doing enough of it that
Yeah.
would have got me where I wanted to go. But I really, really wanted to want it.
When you were out of touch with how you really felt. And I just said to him, if you don't want to build the business, then stop saying you do. And it's fine. Like, I think I was kind of at a point where I was ready to leave. And
Yeah.
I'd started a different business that was going really well. And I was like, Tim, if you don't want to do it, just be honest with yourself. Be honest with me. Stop saying you want to do it when you don't. And like, it's fine.
Yeah.
And that was the start of 2023.
And I think at that point I was like, okay, you know what? I'm going to take a month. I'm going to take 2 months, and I'm not going to like be as all in. I'm not going to like listen to the audio every day, because we listen to audios every day. Like
Yeah.
from the moment you get up in the morning, you put an AirPod in and you start programming your mind with their thoughts, right?
Yeah.
So we stopped doing that. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I have the capacity to think my own thoughts all of a sudden. I can actually start like evaluating things and start thinking about like, well, like maybe I have a different purpose. Maybe there's something else to life other than pursuing this, you know, fantastical lifestyle that I've been pursuing for so long. And you start thinking those things, and yeah, then things start to stand out to you a little bit more. I don't think we really like questioned a whole lot. I think we were just, well, we had one situation in 2021 where the only friends that we had were our upline, and we were in like a crisis situation where we like needed a friend. We needed somebody to lean on. And they really revealed themselves that they were not actual friends in that scenario.
Lots of gaslighting.
Yeah, and then we
Yep.
confronted them about
manipulative.
it, and they turned it around on us, and they were so good at it. We apologized in the scenario. We were like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry that we put these unrealistic expectations on you of friendship and blah blah blah." And then yeah, so we started to realize like I don't know if we're ever really going to be friends with these people because I don't know if we can. Like if they can never share the negative with us, how can that be a real friendship? It's not a two-way
Yes.
street. It's not.
Yeah, and that situation definitely broke the trust for me. I feel
Yeah.
like from that point I wanted to quit, but because of the programming couldn't.
Yeah.
Right? And because of
Yeah.
the manipulation and the gaslighting. But probably should have quit then at that exact time. But you know, I never trusted her ever.
Yeah.
Since that situation.
So we continued on, and then in 2023, I changed jobs because I'd worked this sales job for 8 years and like did not like it at all. And it just got to the point where like my soul was dying. And I was like, I need something different. So I took a recommendation from one of the leaders, of course, to move to this other job. It was terrible. It was a remote job out of the States. And
100% commission.
100% commission. I made no money. Like 6 weeks, I made like $300. And our just monthly fees for the business was like $200. So I was like, we're not paying $200 when I'm bringing in $300.
I wasn't really working at the time, so
Yeah, she didn't have a lot of
Yeah.
clients through her business at that point in time. So we were like, okay, we're gonna go off these memberships. And again, like more of the like mind freed up from going off of the regular audios and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And then a couple more months passed, and we were like, you know what? Like it's time for us to pull the trigger, move on. We were really nervous about it. We communicated to our upline, like, hey, can we have a Zoom call? Can we like jump on a call, or can we get in front of you guys? We want to have a conversation. We've decided that we're gonna put our memberships on hold, and we're gonna kind of step away. And in classic them fashion, they spoke to us like we were any random prospect off the street, and they used this line that they've coached us to use on people all the time, which like just use a different line. It sounds like you've already made your decision, so unless you'd like some perspective on that decision, I don't think we really need to talk about it. And we were like, like we were out of respect for them. We didn't want them to get an email after 13 years that said
We quit.
so and so.
Yeah.
We were off the membership.
Yeah.
But then for them to turn it around and be like, I don't think we really need to talk about it. We were so hurt. Like our hearts were broken. You talk about like friendships, like a hard breakup is hard. A hard friendship breakup after 13 years, that was really hard. So we were really heartbroken for a long time. We didn't realize any of the stuff that had happened. I mean, after that text exchange with them, I think we just responded with okay. And they knew that was not a typical response from us. So then they were like, oh, I'm not sure if that came across the way that we meant it to come across. And we were like, nope, message received.
Yep.
We got it, guys.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
the message was received for us, and we were heartbroken for a long time. In the summer, we were sad for a long time, really sad about it. And then it was around December that I started listening.
We started listening to podcasts and talking to other people that had left. So that was one thing that obviously, like when you're in, you can't talk to someone who's left because they're
a traitor,
like a
suppressive person, right?
Yeah. A squirrel, right?
So,
in Scientology, they're called squirrels, squirrely people.
Squirrels.
Yeah.
Oh,
Nice.
okay. Yeah.
See, we spoke with more people who left, and started listening to podcasts and had our eyes really opened to a whole other reality of the experience we had. for those 13 years.
And I texted a guy that had left like several years before that I'd stayed in contact a little bit with because he had a really cool charity that he ran. And I was like, dude, were we in a cult? And he was like, you're in that stage, are you? And I was like, everybody goes through this stage? Oh my gosh. Well,
It's amazing. It's amazing. You talk about like wanting to build the business because you didn't want to let all like your effort go to waste. And it's so strange. I'm going to insert a little bit of my own life experience here if you don't mind. But I feel like the things that have happened in my life have almost like it was destiny for me to be doing this, because when I was 20, I worked at a casino in Edmonton. I'm sure you know the one. It's like the big casino. I worked there, and before I worked on like the casino floor, we had to do this training about like gambling ethics, where we had to be able to spot the signs of someone who was like a problem gambler, and in extreme cases we would have to like sign them up for like the basically the ban, or encourage them to ban themselves. There's like a self-banning program if people are addicted gamblers. And we learned about the sunk cost fallacy. And they'll say you need to be able to spot the signs of someone who has lost all their money, but they keep gambling because they think the next one is going to help me win it all back. The truth behind this problem is that you stop losing when you stop playing. You stop hemorrhaging money when you stop playing. It's the same in MLM. So it's actually the opposite of what they say. Just like everything they say is doublespeak, they say the opposite of what they do. When they tell you winners never quit and quitters never win, it's actually the opposite. You only stop losing when you quit.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
And winners know when to quit losing propositions.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. You got to know when to hold them and when to fold them. And I think 13 years, it's pretty clear to know that it was time to go.
Should have been sooner, Ironically, you have a way better chance of winning at gambling than you do in MLM.
Yeah.
So it's a perfect story.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And I mean, people have I've been challenged on this before too. Like, oh, Marco, you used to work at a casino. That means you were supporting gambling and whatever. Well, the irony there, whether it's whatever the statistics about alcohol, drug use, gambling, whatever those statistics are, you can at least make the argument that people are making an informed choice to do those things.
Yeah.
People know alcohol is bad. They know cigarettes are bad. They know gambling it's called gambling because it's a risk.
Right.
Informed consent is what truly decides whether or not someone's being deceived. And in MLM, it's all about you not having informed consent. It's about you being lied to, gaslit, this double speak language games, answering questions with questions, being evasive, smiling in your face, and not really being your friend. I mean, that's not informed consent. When people tell me, oh yeah, they got scammed, but they made the choice, or they were too stupid, it's like
nobody held a gun to their head.
Yeah, they didn't make a choice. You know, if I give you a glass of water and I say, want some water, and I don't tell you there's poison in it, I killed you. But if I tell you I've poisoned this water and you drink it, you committed suicide. You see how one hinges on the deception and one is an informed choice. And of course, just like the poisonous water with the business, if you knew the stats, if you knew what they were really doing, if you knew the meaning behind their trickery and their words, you wouldn't do it. So I hope people watching this can I'm sure there are people that are going to watch this that are in the same position you were in 2022 or 2023 that are just right there on the brink of like taking the AirPod out, essentially.
And it's scary. Like, it's honestly probably one of the most terrifying things we ever did, because when you build your whole life around something for 13 years and then you're going to pull the plug on it.
Yes.
That's so scary when you've built your whole life around it and you have to start over. You have to start figuring yourself out. But like, it's so much better. Everything that we were after in that business, we have more of now.
Yeah.
We have more money. We have more security for our future.
Yeah.
We have more time with our family. We have more of everything. We go on more trips, everything. Like, it's crazy.
It's funny.
Yeah.
We are really grateful that it went down the way that it did, because it had to go down that way. Like I had to make no money for those couple weeks
Yep.
of working in order to put us into a situation where we had to get
Where
off
we
those
where we
memberships.
finally
Like,
got off the memberships because we just weren't using it, but you're still holding on to the hope, right?
Yes.
yeah, and it hurt too because they weren't there for us after we had literally like worshipped them
Yes.
for years, right? Like we moved them into their houses. Like you want to talk about unpaid labor for
Yes.
people? The
Yes.
amount of extra things on top of just the unpaid labor we did within the business. We moved them into all of their houses, organized all their stuff for them, put it away for them. Like we just thought this was serving your upline. Something that you're taught within the business
Yeah.
is you always serve your upline. You have one upline to serve and they have many downline to serve. So it doesn't make sense for them to do these things for you necessarily.
Yeah.
But if everybody just serves their upline, then everybody is being served because one day you'll have a team of people that will all serve you. So like we'd go to functions and we would bring them little goodie bags with snacks in them, and we would make sure they always had a ice cold energy drink for them to have, and like all of it. So like we spent these years serving them. We would have thought like bare minimum you'd be there for us in that one crisis time that we have in those 13 years that we had to call you and text you and ask you for help. But
Absolutely.
it revealed itself.
Yeah, I'm planning a video right now called MLM is Human Trafficking, because many people don't understand that human trafficking isn't just physically moving bodies, but it can also be like deceiving people into unpaid labor or unpaid sex acts, which unfortunately is also common in MLM uplines taking advantage sexually of female downlines. But if you think about deception for unpaid labor, that certainly applies to multi-level marketing. And it's even a little bit more sinister than that, because it's not just deception into unpaid labor, it's deception into unpaid labor that they're paying to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You're paying to do to serve your upline. So it's just a complete, again, it's another lie they've told to justify and trick you into worshiping them like a true cult would, you know?
Yeah.
And it builds this cognitive dissonance for you too, right? Because you're like, well, I've served them so much and I've given them so much gifts. Like obviously they didn't mean to like be rude to me. Why would somebody be rude to you?
This is like any abusive relationship. You justify their behavior. And then there's obviously the ups and downs and the cycles. And sometimes they'd be really on in the relationship and love bombing. So it's
you gaslight yourself eventually.
Oh yeah.
It's
yeah. And even like as we were leaving, there was so much gaslighting of ourselves that we were doing. Like we were like, no, like this couldn't be the case. Like there's got to be an explanation for this, or there's got to be something that can, you know, like make more sense of this. We're the ones that are confused here for sure.
Yeah, when we found out about all these things, we're like, there's no way they were lying to us about all of this, right?
Yeah. And then on top of it, there's the allies that are telling you you're the idiot for going along with it.
Also not helpful. Yeah, also not helpful.
Right? Like that not our allies, but like allies to them, or like even people that have left the business that are still brainwashed. They will then come after you in our comments, right? Like we love to do a segment called haters in the comments, because people will come after us and then they'll say all those things. So you're gaslighting yourself. And then these other people are like, are you kidding me? Like, those are the most incredible people I've ever met before. They changed my life. They taught me how to be debt free and blah, blah, blah. And it's like they taught you a couple of basic principles that you could have read in a few books. And you're giving them the credit for every change that you made in your life.
Yeah.
That's what is actually happening there. Like we had a friend that was like, I wouldn't be married without this couple. And we're like, are you kidding? Like you have a faith. Do you not think that maybe God had something to do with that and not just them? Like, sure, maybe he worked through them. Maybe they gave you a piece of advice that was helpful to hear. But like, how could you give them credit for your marriage and your children and the life that you have? Like, they have taught you to do that.
Yeah. I mean, you could also argue maybe God didn't have anything to do with it. Maybe you just loved each other.
Yeah, right? Like,
You know, maybe
there's a million other ways to explain it,
for
but
sure.
you've been so conditioned to think one way and to give all of the attribution of what's good in your life to them,
Yeah.
and all of the attribution of what's bad in your life to you.
Yeah. The cult is working in that case as exactly as it was designed to. You have been in the company for so long. Your only friends are the people you're serving, and they've isolated you successfully from everyone else by telling you that it's, you know, snip snip, or it's good for the business to not make friends in cross lines. And then on top of that, they've made you think the boogeyman is just around the corner if you leave the company, and you're doomed to all these horrible things like bankruptcy and, you know, servitude if you leave, which is of course what you're actually involved in when you're in, not when you're out,
Right.
as you've said. And then on top of that, when you do leave, there's still this negative like backlash trying to make you feel more isolated and more gaslit and more discouraged from speaking out. And it's so perfect the way
Yeah.
they have perfected this strategy over the last 100 years, and all these companies have duplicated it. And it's crazy. We're still in the early stages. I've been doing this 5 years now, and we're still in the early days of exposing this for what it is, which is the biggest commercial cult movement and human trafficking scheme and Ponzi scheme in history.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a well-oiled machine. And it's so funny too to see like people in other industries or like other like scam stories or grift stories. We were watching on Netflix the
Pop.
Dirty Pop about Lou Pearlman.
Yes,
Have you seen this
I've
one?
seen that.
Yeah. He ran a Ponzi scheme, and we were watching it. We were like halfway into the first episode, and Jenna's like, this guy was an Amway. I almost guarantee it. I chat GPT'd it right away. Sure enough,
Wow.
Lou Pearlman got his start in
Just
in
like
a MLM.
just like our other cult leader who's in jail, Keith Raniere,
Yeah.
also started.
Also got his start in
Yes. The couple MLMs that I've been sued by, their founders also got their start in that company.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
Makes sense.
Yeah, I can't wait to see it all crumble.
Well, as I say, I've said this before in videos, the way to combat this fire of recruit 5 people who recruit 5 people into a scam is to recruit 5 people who recruit 5 people to share the video and spread the real truth, you know?
Exactly. Your testimonial, your story might be that one. And it's like, it's almost triggering for me to say it because we said this garbage so much while we were in the business, but it's actually true when you're outside the business. Your story could be the reason why somebody actually changes their life. So you might
Yeah.
save somebody 13 years of their life. Like, that's not a financial loss. Like, yeah, we lost 100 grand in the business, but that's not what sucks. What sucks is that we lost our 20s. Our 20s are gone. That period of your life where you get to be young, making money, free, doing things out there in the world without the responsibilities of children and retirement and like thinking about your future quite as much.
Yeah.
We lost all of those years and we'll never get those back. So they took from us one of the most valuable resources a person can possibly have, and
Yeah.
we can't recover it no matter what we do. So you might save somebody 13 years by speaking out.
Yeah, or more, you know? And that's sort of the unspoken and unquantifiable thing that is, even when in the rare cases when an MLM gets prosecuted or the people who run it get some sort of fine, or I mean, it's very rarely jail time, but even if justice is served to them, there's still no way to ever quantify the relationships that were lost by the people who were in it. Like a judge in a courtroom will talk about money. Okay, you spent this much, you lost this much, here's the repayment. But it doesn't even come close to mending the rest of the wounds. Like, what about the psychological damage, the emotional damage? How can you quantify it? Can you say I lost I lost this many relationships, so that's equal to this much dollars? You can't.
Right.
It's
and they view things transactionally like that. They don't treat it like these are people's lives that you're messing with. Like, it's straight up our life. They hijacked our life at 21 years old and took control of it for 13 years, right? and
Yep.
we're only getting it back now, and we're starting to try and figure out like how do we make decisions for ourselves as an adult. We didn't make a decision without running it by somebody for 13 years. Do you know what that does to your like nervous system to be out free in the world and you can choose to do whatever you want now, and all of a sudden you're supposed to like make decisions like that? It's a very challenging position to be in, but
yeah.
I mean, it's better than the alternative.
And they do it on purpose to make you reliant upon them. Just like Jenna said, it's like an abusive relationship. Like they isolate you, they make you feel like you need them, and the rest of the world is going to be a nightmare if you don't have them. So, like you said, it's a well-oiled machine, you know, and it's a real shame. But I'm so glad that you guys are out now. And on the bright side, you know, you have this story to share, and you guys are like reversing the impacts by saying the truth now and being active online in that regard, and even talking to me, which I really appreciate. And also thank God that your kids are still like young, that like, you know, it's not like these stories I've heard before where people say like they barely knew their parents growing up because they were in the business pursuing it for like, you know. Yeah, it's really important what you guys are doing now.
We appreciate it, and we appreciate all the work you do for sure.
Totally.
I think there's been some pioneers, like you said. We're at the early stages of deconstructing all of this stuff, and there's definitely some pioneers. We always say thank you to the X's and T podcast and Roberta Blevins and the Life After MLM podcast, because listening to those stories actually helped us to like break the brainwashing that we were so heavily influenced by.
Yeah, absolutely. Shout out to them.
If somebody has questions, we're an open book. If people want to reach out to us on our Instagram, we're heroes_villains_ on Instagram. So if you want to reach out and have a conversation, we respond to every DM that we get. So we're happy to walk people through that. And I mean, we can't tell people what to do. They've had somebody doing that
we're not your new cult leader
for years. We're not their new cult leader. We're not going to tell them that, but we can give them the perspective. And if they ask, you know, just what our thoughts are on things, we're happy to share that, because we are an open book. We have nothing to hide, and we don't have everything together. We're not healed from this. We're not past it. We're not any of those things. We're a work in progress, but we're sharing the journey that we're going through as we continue to share online and deconstruct those things. And it's a process that we're going through together with kind of this new community of people that is ironically way larger than the community of people who stay. The community that leaves is way bigger. And so
which was kind of something that I didn't consider when I was involved. Would be the damage of people that are left behind in the wake of, you know, these people trying to rise to success and really treating people like numbers. Right? They use people. They treat people like they're a number to get them to their next goal. And then there's all the people who are left with financial struggles or trauma or broken relationships or regrets. And I think that was something that I didn't even consider when I was in, but it's really the reality of what's going on there.
We came out a lot better than a lot of other people. So
absolutely. And it's a big benefit to us that the number of people who used to be in will always outweigh the number of people who are currently in. I mean, when I'm back in Edmonton, I'd love to meet both you guys and just give you a hug. And maybe I don't want to sound like a recruiter when I say meet for coffee, but
triggered.
I was gonna ask you that too. Is there ever like things that you say where you're like, where like your spidey sense goes off, where you're like, oh, that's like an ism?
Every day. Every day.
Lots of stuff is triggering.
There's a lot of like we're deconstructing even like our beliefs around like success culture now. Like there's a lot of things that are used to manipulate people that people do not know are used to manipulate them, whether you are in a job or whether you are in a MLM or whatever it is, right? They get you to read these books that have these isms that get you to commit your life and you know, give everything you are to some other opportunity to create wealth for somebody who's not you, which is unfortunate. So there's so many things that we say, little phrases, little I had somebody go to like a personal development seminar, and they came back, and the way that they were describing it, I was like, oh, like an out of body experience
Yeah.
of me watching myself explain my first function. And I was like, oh my goodness. The cringe, like I say this on the page all the time, like the cringe factor is unlimited.
Yeah.
There's unlimited cringe that we're going to experience probably for the rest of our life, because we look back on the things that
The
we
things
did
we
and
said
said.
to people, and we're like, oh, thank God our family and the friends that we still have are
And we're lucky
still
that
there
our
for us.
hearts were actually pure. Like our hearts were pure the
Right.
whole time. We thought we were doing something
We
great
did.
for
We
people.
really did.
Yeah.
We thought we were changing people's lives in such a positive way, and we wanted
Yeah.
nothing but them to benefit from that. But we
Yeah.
were wrapped up in a machine that was way stronger than we were.
Yeah. It's good that you weren't like the sociopaths or psychopaths who are attracted to this thing, who actually don't care whether they're helping people or not, you know? They just go, well, it's legal, fuck them.
Yeah.
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 Oh, they would say even on some of the audios, like, is it legal or close? Or what was the phrase?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. Is it moral, legal, or close? And they're like insinuating that like they'd do it kind of no matter what.
I
But
see. I see.
Yes, yeah.
Truly amazing. Well, yeah, I mean, it takes such a strong person and a good person to be able to embrace the cringe and like be vulnerable and show the cringe, and like in the hopes of helping other people not commit the same.
yeah.
Totally.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
do
And we'll
appreciate
take the
it.
tomatoes from the haters. It's fine.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate you guys chatting with me and taking time out, and yeah, I know this is going to be really helpful to at least somebody out there.
We hope so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thanks.
Okay.
Mhm.
Amazing. I'll put your guys' Instagram, and definitely go check them out on Instagram, Heroes to Villains. And really it should be Villains to Heroes, right?
Yeah.
Well, they were our heroes. We worshipped them.
I see.
And all of your heroes fall, right? But ours fell pretty far.
Yeah. So it's really a depiction of who they were to us for so long, and now
The reality.
what they truly are.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Okay, thank you guys so much. I appreciate it.
Thanks for
Awesome.
having us.
Okay, I'll let you go. You guys have a good night.
All right. See ya.
you.
Bye.
Bye.